All right, we got another Dear DSO that came in. You can submit your own question at dadstartingover.com/dear-DSO. And today's submission comes from John. The subject line is, "An affair can save a marriage?" Interesting. And his message is, "Hi, DSO." Well, hi, John. "I love your stuff. Have you ever heard from a guy that an affair can actually save a marriage? My story is that my wife and I had a dead bedroom for about 2 years. After our son was born," he says, "she checked out completely and didn't want anything to do with me unless it had to do with the kid. I had many talks with her, suggested counseling, books, but nothing could get through to her. I started seeing a woman that I work with. We had lunch, started texting every day, and then ended up having sex. We've been seeing each other off and on for about 5 months. We both are married and have no desire to leave our marriages. We've both been good about keeping things just physical between us. I've spent way less time chasing my wife, and I have given her the space that she says she needs. It seems that now she is more pleasant, she likes the distance, and actually initiated sex with me several times in the past month. She hasn't done anything like that in years. I can't remember the last time that she initiated, actually. I would say that my behavior towards her has been far more aloof, distant, and non-caring. I worried that this may set off alarms and cause my wife to start asking questions and snoop on me. But instead, she seems happier than ever. And for now, it seems like this is a completely sustainable relationship we have. I have my girlfriend on the side, and she has the distance that she wants. She doesn't question anything, and I no longer feel like I have to win her over. Instead, she comes to me. Is this completely weird? Have you heard anything like this before?" Man, this is a good one. This just has like all kinds of cool, interesting stuff in one message, so thank you for sending it, John. Have I heard something similar to this before? Yes. Not often from the guys that I speak to, but from the relationship sphere talk in general, this is not an unheard of thing. There is an author by the name of Esther Perel who wrote a book that was very, very popular, has sold bazillions of copies, and it's called Mating in Captivity. And it talks in part about this scenario. To encapsulate this as much as possible, this is a real multifaceted thing we're talking about here. This is kind of complicated. Relationships are complicated stuff. But in this particular scenario, what we're seeing here is an illustration of the fact that it's really, really difficult to put all your eggs in one basket, in one human, as far as a relationship is concerned. Modern-day marriage, the template for modern-day marriage is one of, they got to be my best friend in the whole world, they got to be my lover, my provider. That doesn't necessarily mean monetary. It could be providing, comfort, security. I need to know that my wife's going to be there. She needs to know that I'm going to be there. What if one of us gets sick? We need to help, care for each other. So the caregiver. It's a lot of jobs all into one human being. And we expect that one human being to do anything and everything. And they need to be wired up here in a way that they're able to juggle all of that successfully and continue on doing all of those things from now until the day we die. And when somebody fails at that, we're not happy campers. Well, it could be argued that your wife has kind of failed in one regard, and that is in the lover category. Not unheard of. As you may or may not know from listening to my stuff or watching videos or reading my material, when I ask men who are in bad relationship situations, when did the wheels fall off the relationship? The number one answer I get by a long shot is when the kids came into the picture. As I often say, kids are kind of a crapshoot. You don't know what's going to happen after the fact. It could change that dynamic between you and your spouse completely. All the way, from just the bedroom activity goes from 5 days a week to once a month kind of thing. To a lot of men, that's a pretty glaringly bad thing. All the way to the super extreme of, the woman suffers from extreme postpartum depression, has to be hospitalized, all kinds of fun stuff. In your case, it sounds like her libido just completely dried up post childbirth, And you went without physical intimacy, if I'm reading this correctly, for 2 years after your boy was born. She just checked out completely. Now, why she checked out is the question. Or anxieties, resentment towards you. Who knows? I mean, it could be a myriad of different reasons. But regardless, you two disconnected in that way. And you, to your credit, tried a lot of different things to bring you guys together, to bridge the gap. Counseling, books, sit-down talks with her. And it sounds like she was very resistant to all of that. You are exhibiting... I'm just getting this from several paragraphs of a message, so I don't know for a fact, and I'm no psychologist, but it sounds like you are being Mr. Anxious Attachment Guy, or at least exhibiting some characteristics of it, chasing after her. Let's talk about this. Let's read this book. Let's go to this counselor. And she's exhibiting very kind of avoidant tendencies, which is, get away from me. Which is further fleshed out by the fact that when you went off and said, well, the job of my lover, I see, wife, you don't want that job. Well, I'm going to give that job to this person over here. And your wife's reaction was, not surprisingly, oh, phew, because I really didn't want that job anyway. Takes the pressure off. And that allows you, mister, to crank the anxiety down or the anxious attachment traits down to the point where I'm much more comfortable being around you now. You're not always talking about this stuff. You're not asking me to read books or podcasts, and you're not asking me to go to counseling. You're just existing. And that's kind of what I've been wanting for years and years now, is just for you just to calm the F down and exist. Seems kind of cold, but that's what she wanted. And now she's got it. And you're watching her kind of open up. She's more comfortable. And she's coming to you. Interesting. So have you tapped into a relationship dynamic is the question, which is sustainable long term? There are people out there in the world that live this out, and they live this out openly. In other words, wife knows about girlfriend, or girlfriends, plural. Husband knows about lovers on the side. That's what they call open relationships. And some people, such as swingers and that world, they do it openly with each other. There's just a whole bunch of different ways and flavors and iterations of this relationship love game out there. It's not just strict monogamy, ain't just it, as I've learned over the years of talking to a lot of different people. There's a lot of different ways to skin a cat, so to speak. And your version of that is lover on the side, I presume a secret. The wife doesn't know about it. And that seems to improve things all around. Is this long-term sustainable? You're playing with fire, and I think you know it. And the whole, hey, we can keep this physical, me and other fellow married woman, we can keep this a secret, number one, that's tough. And number two, keep it just physical. Good luck, dude. Somebody's going to, quote unquote, catch feelings. And then all hell's going to break loose because she is going to say, I've dumped my husband and I want to be your woman from now on. Just you and me. You dump that wife over there too. And you're like, oh shit, this isn't what I wanted. My advice is always to be open and honest. Put it out there on the table. Wife, you and I both know we've had issues for a while. You know I've been pestering you. And you know that you've been resistant to all of my pesterings over the years. I've been chasing after you and got counseling and books and all this other stuff. And I think you may have noticed that I've backed off. And it's helped out quite a bit. Well, I'm going to be honest with you, wife. I'll tell you why I backed off. Lay it all out there. What's the worst that could happen? Well, I understand. It could get pretty bad. I've heard those stories. Guy loses his 401k, pays a lot of money every month because of divorce. Wife says, I don't want anything to do with you anymore. Get the hell away from me. His reputation is lost amongst his social group because now he's the cheater. In today's modern society, especially in the West, people don't really stop and think and say, why is it he or she stepped out? A lot of them just say, you stepped out and you're a dirtbag and you deserve everything bad that ever comes to you. They don't stop and ask the guy or gal, were you in a dead bedroom relationship? Were you abused? Were you, all kinds of things. They just, modern day society says cheating is no bueno. And if you do it, go to hell. Well, as you can see, these things aren't so simple. And again, this is nothing new, this concept. I've talked about it in my writings. There was a famous, his title, I think, was President of France years ago. I think his name was Macron, Macron. He famously had a big funeral when he died. People in the U.S. and other countries were just flabbergasted and clutching their pearls when they saw that in the procession or in the crowd of people at his funeral was his wife, and sitting down next to wife was his lover, his girlfriend. And a lot of French people at the time said, well, yeah, that's pretty common. And people in the U.S. and other places were like, holy shit, this is nothing new. If you can make it work, all right, I guess. As long as it's above board and everyone's cool with it and no boundaries are violated and nobody's going to get hurt. But from what I've seen in these scenarios, good freaking luck. Somebody's probably going to get hurt in some way. So, John, thank you so much for a very interesting Dear DSO submission. Appreciate it a great deal, and best of luck to you, and stay in touch. I want to hear how this goes.